Motion passes 12-0.
Thank you, Commissioners. Have a nice day.
Thank you. Okay, so next we'll move on to the Finance Department 2019 first quarterly report. And let me get a motion to receive and file. Moved by Kraft. Support. Support by Myjack. Director Smigel.
Yeah, good afternoon, Commissioners. You have in front of you the first quarterly report for the first quarter. Try to keep my comments brief as I normally do, and I really try to focus mainly on the general fund and salaries in particular. I'll talk a little bit about fringe benefits. At the end of the first quarter of 2019, the base pay line item was reporting at about 98% of budget, and that's very good news when you roll that out annualized, particularly since we reduced the turnover factor from 3.5% or 5% to 3.5%. So let me step back a couple of steps. When I talk about 98%, that's annualized. So when you look at the first quarter, you annualize it based on the number of pay periods that we've had to date. As of the end of the first quarter, it looks like we're going to come in at about 98% of the budget. And again, that's after reducing the turnover factor from 5% to 3.5%. So that's extremely good news. On the healthcare side, looks like we're going to, at least based on the first quarter, come in at about 90% or 91% of budget on the healthcare side. Haven't done a lot of analysis on that. I would assume that's because of vacant positions. So we budget healthcare for all the positions. So if there's vacancies, we're of course not incurring those expenses. So that would be about a $1.6 million savings, if you will, in that particular line item. However, we're also having more turnover than we have expected. So we have more folks entering the defined contribution plan. So we're incurring more of those 6% contributions than we anticipated. So that line item is running over budget. And it looks like we'll be under budget overall in fringe benefits by the end of the year. I'll have more information as we go along through the second quarter. First quarter is a little bit too soon to really get a gauge of what's going to happen for the rest of the year. Those are all the comments I really had on the 2019 year. If anybody has any questions, I have a few comments about 2018 though.
Okay, I don't see any questions, so why don't you go ahead?
So for 2018, good news. The general fund will report, if there's no changes during the course of our annual audit, a surplus of about $3.6 million. So that's good news. The fund balance in total will be about 24.7% of fund balance, or expenditures, excuse me. The spendable portion will be about 23%. So that's good news. There is one item of concern for me, though, is that our personal property tax reimbursement came in at $1.8 million less than we budgeted last year. So it's about $4.2 million. We were budgeting $6 million. So we talk about a $700,000 increase in property taxes this year as a result of, higher than expected property values. We probably are going to see another, situation in 2019 where the personal property reimbursement will be less than what we budgeted. We budgeted $6 million a year again. So keep our eyes on that. So something to keep in mind when you're debating other issues. And so overall, we had a good year last year. So I think I was here in the fall telling you we'd be about a $4.3 million surplus. Primary driver of that difference is this personal property tax reimbursement offset by some better than expected revenues such as interest. So that's all my comments. We got a few bucks.
Yeah. Well, go ahead, Commissioner Carabelli.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In this report, do you have a line item for the interest generated by the Treasurer's Office? And while you're looking for it, maybe you know it off the top of your head, because if I heard correctly, we budgeted roughly $700,000 last year, and we upped it to $1 million because we got more in.
Yeah, we budgeted 300, we made an adjustment for 700 to bring it up to $1 million.
Okay, and if I'm not mistaken, he just brought in $1,371,000. So
Yeah, we'll look at that, because we
just for
budgeted
this
$1 million
quarter.
this year.
But that's just for this quarter. Or am I misunderstanding something?
Yeah, I'd have to look at it.
It's his quarterly report.
Now, that could be for all funds, including the delinquent tax fund and the road fund and,
This is what I'm trying to understand. If you get a chance, you know what I'm saying? Because the way it was presented, his quarterly report, they brought in $1.3 million. We talked over a whole year of $1 million last year, or am I misunderstanding how it was presented?
yeah, I can follow up and get back with you, Commissioner. If you look at, I believe it may be page 5 of your agenda, it's page RV3 of the quarterly report. So if you let me know when you're there, I'll guide you through. So about halfway down the page, there's a whole section in there for investment income and rents. And you'll see a line item for investment income. So the year-to-date in the general fund is about $305,000, $306,000. So that's what we've booked, so. Without having looked at the treasurer's report, I'm gonna guess again, that's across all funds.
Okay,
Yeah.
just curious.
So,
Then the next question is your carryover from 2018 coming into 19, your final numbers, what was that again? And what did you
fund balance you're referring to?
Yes.
So the fund balance will be roughly $57.2 million if we don't have any audit adjustments. It'll be about 20, just shy of 25%.
Okay, so how much more than what we anticipated or less than what we had started out our 2019 budget saying this is what we had in our reserves, dollar-wise?
We had $53.6 million at the beginning of the year,
And we're at 57?
and we're at 57.2.
So then you'll be coming back with a budget adjustment for that, or how is that going to work?
No, 2018 is closed. So there's no, whatever budget adjustments we made are what they are. We'll just report over budget or under budget depending on what happened during the course of the year. We'll be over budget in revenues. The revenues are over budget by about 0.8%. Total expenses are pretty much right at budget.
Okay, all right, thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Chair Smith.
Thank you. Thanks, Steve. I just wanted to understand, you said the total surplus was 3.6, and then you kind of brought in the bad news about the personal property tax, but that was already included, though, in the 3.6,
Absolutely.
right?
That's already accounted for.
Okay. I
Yes.
just wanted, good, thank you.
All right, seeing no other speakers, please vote. Motion passes 12-0. All right, we'll move on to the capital improvement plan. I'm going to get a motion to receive and file, and then I'm going to speak very quickly before you speak. Moved by Carabelli, support by Gillette. Okay, I've been asked, apparently we got this late, and
Yeah, you did get it late. I
Okay,
apologize for that.
So, I was asked whether or not I should schedule a finance meeting for next week, and I thought we would let commissioners ask their questions, and the commission should make that determination instead of me just making that determination after the question and answer. So I don't see any meetings scheduled for next week, or I think even the week after. So
I'm out of town next week.
you're out of town next week.
So,
Okay, it's a receive and file. I mean,
Yeah,
if we wanted to.
if you want to have Crystal or follow up with questions, I know it's last minute. I was just kind of going to run through the format.
Right,
And-
so, and, I mean, they could commissioners could make a request at a later date if you'd
Absolutely.
be willing to come and speak to
Absolutely.
it. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, so you have Schedule 1 and Schedule 2. And again, this is a kind of a first stab at this. We mentioned last year that we'd be bringing quarterly updates. So again, apologize for the late receipt of this report. However, we'll start with Schedule 1. So you have the list of the projects on the left. You have the original amount that was estimated for the project. That ties into the plan we submitted to you last September with the budget. Any additions or deletions, those could be new projects that came to the board between then and now. For example, the kettle replacement project was one of those. The new jail, the architectural fees for the jail, all those sorts of, the increase in that, I should say. There's things that were taken off the plan, things moved up from one year, things moved back to other years. There's also a column for carry forward. Now, those are projects that were approved last year or prior years that were not completed at the end of 2018, and the fund balance carried forward. So then the money's in the capital projects fund to pay for the remainder of the expenses on those particular projects. And then there's notes off to the side relative to, you know, percentage completion, how far along they are, so on and so forth. Schedule 2 is a little bit more detailed. The far left-hand column is a repeat of the financial data from Schedule 1. In the middle, you have spending activity through March 31st. So you have the actual dollars or expenses recorded. Committed would represent open purchase orders, and future expected would be costs that we expect to incur throughout the remainder of 2019 with a total cost. Again, and then the far right-hand column represents the funding sources for those projects, either carry forward money from 2018, current year general fund contribution, or other sources, which would represent mostly other funds. For example, for the radio project, roads is paying some, public works is paying some, sheriff department is paying some, so on and so forth. So it's kind of the layout of the report. And you'll see that in 2019, we are talking about capital project spending just north of $21 million for the year. So about $8 million of that is carry forward from last year. What we've been able to do throughout various moves of taking things off the plan, things coming onto the plan, is create a contingency of about $1,084,000. You see that on page 4 of this report. So that's available to us throughout the remainder of the year to absorb the cost of anything unplanned that may crop up and still keep the general fund contribution at what it was budgeted for 2019. You'll also notice that we were able to project a reduction in the general fund contribution of about $1.4 million. And primarily where that's coming from is if we have projects that moved from 2019 to 2020 or 21, for example, that's not really saving the general fund any money overall because we're just moving the cost from 19 to 20. So we could reduce the contribution this year and increase it next year, or I would prefer to just push that money over in 2019 and earmark it. The big driver in that is the renovation project at the Verkulen building. That project is out with architectural and design right now, but Lynn is telling me that she doesn't expect the construction bids to come in until January of 2020. So there's about $1 million reduction in this year's cost getting pushed to 2020. So we'll monitor that closely as we go along with other projects. JACO has a lot that need to be started yet in IT, so I'm sure I'll have a lot more detailed information for you at the end of the second quarter. But again, as Commissioner Kleinfeld indicated, if commissioners have a chance to study this more closely, if you have any questions about it, then certainly forward them to me, and I'll do my best to answer them.
Okay, Commissioner Carabelli.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Steve, thanks for this report. It's pretty detailed, and I'm trying to get my arms around it. Thank you for that.
That's one of the reasons it's late, is I was trying to get my hands around it. I'm trying to make it understandable, give you enough information, but not too much to completely consume you.
So, just so I can understand something, like on Schedule 1, the jail mechanical upgrade contingency, it was moved to the general fund contingency. Is that what I'm understanding, or back into?
Right, so that
I'm
was
sorry,
part, that makes up part of the 1,084,000 of contingency I talked about.
So it was originally budgeted as contingency, or was budgeted because she thought she was going to do it, and now maybe she's not, so it's just moving into the contingency?
It's just a
of-
contingency in general.
Okay.
I mean, it was,
All right, now, I'm looking at this, subtracting the 800 megahertz and plus or minus a few things. So you're at 16, well, you're at 11,000, now it's 16 million on Schedule 1. Take out a few things. I looked at the report that Commissioner Drolet had asked for the cost on the jail, and I'm looking at the numbers, and maybe I'm not understanding them, 'cause just looking at this, you're saying there's only $5.5 million in 2019 that's going to be spent, and I'm looking at this, it's a heck of a lot more than that. I got $4 million just on jail lighting alone. So are these numbers, bear with me,
that's just for the open projects.
this is for non-emergency, what does this list, so I can understand it?
Can I come see it
Oh,
real quick?
absolutely. I'm just trying to understand, because he told me it was only $5 million a year, and I go, there's no way it's $5 million a year. I know we spend a lot more money than that on projects in there. And just looking at your Schedule 1, it shows a lot more than $5 million a year. So I'm just trying to get another.
Jail only?
Jail only.
Yeah, you have,
And it's showing 5 for this year. And that doesn't include the emergency stuff that pops up every now and again that we are putting contingency up for.
yeah, you'd have the lighting and replacement of 4.1, the jail kettle replacement, the air
Right, so
handler.
you don't have to go through it, but you
Yeah.
understand what I'm saying? The numbers that were given on that sheet are not matching what's in here. And in my gut, not that
Yeah,
I'm-
I'll get back with
not-
you.
No,
Commissioner,
hang on to
'cause I
that.
think that ties in.
Hang on to that.
Possible that 10-year figure incorporates general fund dollars from the maintenance and operations budget, things that need to be fixed in the jail. That isn't
In
just
prior
all,
years, yes.
that isn't just all capital projects.
No, but I think Commissioner
higher
Carabelli's
here.
question, 2019.
Oh, specifically.
So I guess, because what we're doing is, long story short, we're trying to get an understanding of, because of the building it is, not our electric bill or gas bill or anything like that, we know we're going to continue having it, what above and beyond cost that it's been costing us to operate the jail, and full cost, like, the kitchen replacement because of just these things that weren't budgeted that come up, and we have to spend this money on there to give it a true number of saying, this is, it's closer to $10 million a year we're spending on the jail. So it may change your thought process of what you're looking to do. Whatever the cost is outside of employees and outside of normal maintenance of electric bills and stuff like that, cost per year of what truly was spent, and right now what's budgeted to be spent in the calendar year. So when you guys get a chance, if you can go through that, that'd be great. And on that note, Madam Chair, if I can, I don't know, you want to stop me if it's not following the right lines. Is there a point in time we're going to be talking about, you're going to come up and talk to us about the jail funding options
I believe the sheriff is coming in June.
in June?
Pardon?
Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Commissioner Romano.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Hi, Steve. Steve, while I'm going through this, nothing, it seems like you're on track for what we've got for the first quarter. Nothing is jumping out at me to saying, and this is going to be an exceedingly large cost, or am I missing something? The numbers are pretty much fitting in line with what we projected. Am I off here?
I've not been made aware of any of the current projects having change orders going over budget, other than, I would say, the architectural fees at the
Right.
jail. But
That
that
would
came
be
to the
it.
board a month or two ago.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have.
Commissioner Ha.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think Commissioner Carabelli and I were looking at the same numbers with the same thoughts. I had quickly added those up to about 8 million, Steve. So you.
8 million for, are you, may I ask, are you including the radio replacement project?
I'm not.
Okay. I don't know how, I'm not following the 8 million.
Anyway,
I'll just follow up. We're getting into a mathematical debate here and without knowing how
If you just
everybody's
start
driving
with
their numbers.
Jail camera replacement, jail tower masonry, jail, just add those numbers up and then go up to the top column. But you answered the question to Commissioner Carabelli. What's the plan here? And just for my own information, what is a jail kettle replacement?
Kettles in the kitchen where they cook the meals. There's 4 of them.
Okay, I'm sorry I
I think we
asked that
replaced 4. I think there
question.
might be 5.
Really?
Yeah.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
That went through the
Yes, no.
emergency, that went through the emergency bypass procedure.
No,
Just-
that first meeting that came up, I said I'm getting into the kettle business because it's
You
pretty
may
good
already
business.
be. Thank you.
Okay, and I was just going to ask, so the simplified one, the one that's the first page, that is just addressing things that changed and there's no expenditures, right? They changed, they've been put off or canceled or something. I mean, that's why you have this Schedule 1 is different than
To
the
show what
others.
happened to the 2019 plan, either adds, deletes, carry forward, yeah.
Okay, so this doesn't list expenditures that have occurred. That's in the more
That's
detail.
in Schedule 2.
Okay, that's all. Thank you. Okay, I don't see any other speakers on this, so please vote.
You're welcome.
Motion passes 12-0. Next, we have the Budget Process Work Group recommendations, and we'll start out with the Resolution 2019-3299, establishing a budget process. And I'm going to seek a motion to approve, and then Commissioner Hall, would you like to speak to it first? Okay. Okay, moved by Haas, supported by Gillette, and I'll turn it over to Commissioner Haw. And just to let commissioners know, I did not sit on that work group. Thank you.
Well, I was going to let them know that as well, but thank you for that. Commissioners Leonetti, Phil Kraft, Liz, Jim, myself sat down. We were trying to put some recommendations. Oh, Leon. I was
not part of it. Yeah.
No, I was saving Leon for last because he had some very valuable input into this committee process.
And just for the record, I was not part of the committee.
I
Yeah.
had said Leonetti. I meant to say Leon, so shoot me. Okay, we're going to start this all over. We sat down. We had 2 meetings. We had numerous back and forth input and came up with a guideline resolution to be presented to the Finance Committee, to be presented to the full board before it got passed on to the Executive's office. That was our plan. We followed the plan. We came up with various attributes. And again, Leon was very conversant on what he thought we needed to do, how we need to do it, and even came up with a balanced budget projected percentage, which we congratulate him on making that recommendation. So the process was, committee met, came up with the recommendations, sent them to the Finance Committee for their review before submittal to the Executive Office. So that's where we were, and I want to thank all the members because we had some very lively conversation on this subject.
Okay, so I'm assuming that since we've done that as the process, that it would go to the executive's office for them to review and speak to before it goes to full board. Is that what the thought process of
no.
the committee is, or?
No, you missed a step there. My plan was, and the group's plan was to send it to the Finance Committee for them to review it and approve it, and then go to the Executive's office.
Yes, well, we're at the Finance Committee. So if we do that, my question is the intent then for them to review it before the full board votes on it?
Yes.
Or,
That was the intent.
okay. And then, so they would probably speak to it at the full board meeting that it's on, or, I mean, that could be worked out with our office. I just didn't know what the intent was there.
That was the intent. Yes.
Okay, and I don't see anybody else that wants to speak to it.
I would like Leon to. He had a very, very large amount of
I
input.
don't want to speak to it other than to thank Commissioner Ha and also thank our staff, Crystal, and others who did an
Yes.
amazing job coming with a lot of great information that was essential. So thank Commissioner Ha for chairing that, and Crystal and the group for doing such a good job.
Very good job. Thank you, Crystal.
Okay, Commissioner Carabelli.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I also concur with, I think, Commissioner Hall, Kraft, Drollet, and Crystal, and Lucido. A lot of individual thoughts did go into this, and I thought it was a good process of trying to achieve what's best for all parties involved, to have an outcome that's kind of streamlined, so we can say, hey, this is how we want to keep going forward instead of changing it year after year. I'm sure there'll be tweaks, going forward. Is this the time, or maybe not the time, to speak to the email today about the?
I think it's the next agenda
Next
item with
agenda.
regard
Oh,
to,
okay. All right, I'll wait for that time. Thank you.
okay, Commissioner Brown.
Thank you. Thank you for the commissioners who took the time to put this together. It's no easy task, and I appreciate that. I saw the goal of having 1% of the fund balance used to help. What about the overall budget in terms of, I didn't see a percentage what we wanted to have as a goal for the year-over-year overall budget increase from this year to next year. We've been pretty close to flat the last few years. Last year, we bumped up because we had capital projects that inflated that number up a little bit. But there was a lot of discussion last year about, keeping that budget under 3%. Is that, I don't think I saw that in there, but maybe I missed it. Could someone speak to that?
Commissioner Gillette.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Commissioner Brown. I think the two provisions that sort of answer that question are, number one, the provision that the budget cannot spend any more money than we have coming in. So for the year, essentially, a simplified way of saying it. So it doesn't say they have to keep it below the rate of inflation, above the rate of inflation at 3% or 4%. It just can't be more than we're taking in. And the second principle is that we are going to increase the fund balance as is calculated by the national standard groups by 1%. So what we're saying is we want to be not spend any more money than we have coming in, and two, we want to put a little bit more money aside. And those are the principles that affect the percentages or dollar amounts. They aren't specified. It just can't be any more than we got coming in.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Okay, I don't see any other speakers, so this is a motion to recommend to full board, and in the meantime, administration will look at it, and we can do a couple things. We can have written communication on it, as well as a discussion at that meeting, or if you want to come to a meeting prior to that, that could be worked out with our office before the full board vote. That's how I'm looking at the way we'll do this. Okay, so there's motion and support. Please vote. Okay, that motion passes 12-0. So the next item that we have is the budget review calendar, and I'm going to seek a motion to recommend it to the full board, and we'll see where that goes. Are commissioners all aware that there was an email sent to us by Executive Delton regarding this? Deputy Executive Delton. Oh, well, I got silence, so I don't know if that means yes or no. So, all right, so is there a motion? All right, is there discussion? There's no motion, so I'm saying.
I'll make a motion.
Okay. Moved by Carabelli, supported by Duje. Nobody was making one. Okay, Commissioner Carabelli.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Again, I briefly went over the email you had sent, and it came into the office, I think last year, we started in August and not September. Is that correct or incorrect?
It was submitted.
It was either late August or early September, because it's always around the first week.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. The budget, I believe, was submitted to your office about the third week in August, but I don't think you started your reviews until right after Labor Day. I could be wrong, but right about there.
Okay, and again, because I don't pull it up on my phone right now, your question is the dates that we're looking to start, it says, I think the first one's September 9th, and you're saying that you guys won't be ready by
We
that
will
time?
not, no, we will not be ready. No.
Steve got a new added employee to his office. He can't get that stuff ready for you by then?
That's not the person who puts the budget
I'm just
together.
kidding. In all reality, if you can't be ready, you can't be ready. Because we wanted to start it earlier than later to flush anything out.
No, I can appreciate that, but again, the correspondence that I sent to the commissioners today really speaks for itself, and that's always something that the two offices sat down and agreed to. And
Okay, it speaks to itself in a vague manner. If Steve you could speak to the things that our independent finance person, that as a result of her were additional steps that you needed to take. Could you possibly speak to what those steps are?
well, last year rather, you hired additional outside consultant to help you understand the budget, because from what we were told is we weren't doing a very good job helping you understand the budget. So the outside consultant was hired, and a lot more questions came our way. Ironically, at the end of your hours and hours of budget review, you adopted the very same budget that the executive submitted the third week in August. But it was still good dialogue. But we realized throughout that process that we had some weaknesses in our own budget preparation. Just one of them being, we need to get the department budgets back in the hands of the department heads or the countywide elected officials, something we weren't doing. So then when it was coming here as a complete document, through all of the nuances of the deliberations, we were inadvertently, it was our fault, we were missing some things, and we had taken stuff out of department budgets without communicating that back to the department heads. Then they would look at the budget on October 1st or whenever it was adopted and say, where's this? At that point, you got to suck it up and wait till next year. So those were weaknesses in our processes. We had told Steve months ago that next year we are going to take more time doing this, and once finance department feels they have the budget in good order, we are going to get each piece of it back to the department heads or the countywide elected officials for them to review what's being proposed. Because not everybody gets everything that they're asking for. So that's an additional step that's going to take time.
Okay, and go ahead.
I just looked, I asked Crystal to look up. So it's almost a month difference. It was, the first meeting was 8/29, and then it went to 8/31 and 9/6. So it's
Okay.
almost a whole month you're asking us to push it out. Just the due diligence on our part now, we're going to be losing the time frame there of almost a month. Is there something we can work together on?
But when I look at your calendar, you're proposing that you start on September the 9th, and by October 24th, you're hoping to adopt. That's only 7 weeks. I mean, that's a lot of work in 7 weeks, and I can appreciate the work and the scrutiny that all of the commissioners put into reviewing the budget, but we need more time on our end.
But we extended our deadline the last time because there wasn't enough time.
1 week. So the year before, I want to say in 2017, we had agreed to submit the budget by the middle of August. That was really put a lot of pressure on the finance department. And again, we did not get it back in the hands of the budget, the people that control the individual budgets. The next year, which was a year ago, we said we can't get it to you by the middle of August. It will be the third week of August. So.
Okay, I'm going to call on Chair Smith while he's looking.
Yeah, I don't know why. So just for a point of clarification, for the last 3 years, we've actually hired some outside consultant, although we might have had a lot more questions last year. We've hired outside consultants for the last couple of years. This doesn't, I mean, the only thing this does, I think we were trying to get this earlier in the last few years for everybody's sake to try to keep it out of November and December. It doesn't mean that we don't have time if we do it at the end of September. It just takes meetings into, you know, the holiday season, which it is what it is. I mean, we're, you know, so obviously our schedule may have to change based, you know, obviously on starting on the 7th. Those meetings may have to be looped, you know, back into August, or not August, October, November, and even possibly December. I mean, there's a time frame with we have to work with that, you know, gives the executive time to veto if they so choose, and us time to, you know, consider what to do if that happens. But I mean, we were trying to move it earlier so that it served everybody's schedule through the holiday season a little better and didn't put the time crunch on. But I remember different times being in the end of December, passing a budget at a meeting, you know, day before Christmas or something stupid like that. So, I mean, it is what it is. If they're looking at, you know, if you're looking at making your system better and the process better, and maybe that comes to us in a way that we don't have to look at things in the way that we did before, maybe it's an easier look for us, then who knows? Maybe that actually works out better at the end of the day.
Back to Commissioner Carabelli.
Thank you, Madam Chair. When do you guys send out to the county-wides for in your department? When do you start your process?
Steve, when do we start in the process?
End of this month, first week of June, usually around.
Okay. All right, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, a couple of things. What is the time period that we should have it done so as to accommodate for the veto and the override and all of that? When is it that we really should have it done?
What's the backwards? How many days?
Okay, and while you're, okay, while you're looking at that, I just want to clarify a couple other things. My understanding was that we hired people not just to help us understand the budget, because I understood the budget that was given, but that we were also hiring people to analyze the budget. So I just want to clarify.
Sure.
Different commissioners may have had different reasons to have them. So, right, and you suggested we're giving ourselves a short period of time with 7 weeks. So with your moving it up, depending on how long we could go, that would even shorten it further for us. And I believe not only are there those 4 meetings, but it looks like there's a budget meeting scheduled for the day after we get the budget. And I don't know if you can remember back, it seems to me, from my memory, that like 5 years ago, or that it was more like the beginning of August or the very end of April that we used to get it.
Well, if I may clarify, so so this form of government started in January of 2011. The budget would have already been submitted to the previous commission, the 26-member board, and the 26-member commission adopted it for the year 2011. The first budget that the executive's office submitted to the board was done in 2 parts. So following the charter, we are required to submit the budget 90 days before the fiscal or the budget year starts. So for those that were around back in the fall of 2011, we submitted a budget for all of the 9/30 year-end budgets, which is like CMH grants in 13. So we submitted a separate budget for that, and we would have done that by, I think, July 1st. And then we submitted another budget to you by October 1st for all the general fund stuff. In 2013, the board approached the executive and said, this is really kind of cumbersome. Can you go back to consolidating it in one document, and we will look at approving a continuing resolution or whatever it is that you've been adopting for several years now, just keeping the 9/30 year-end budgets, tying them all together. So you only go through this process once. And that was at the board's request. Commissioner Kleinfeld, maybe that was what you were referring to when you recall getting.
It may have been. I mean,
getting
it
it
was
in
at the
July.
beginning of my time.
Okay.
So,
That may have-
okay, so we would have to do the continuing resolution. And Crystal, did you by chance have a chance to figure that out, or?
So, November 27th would give 10 business days for retail and 10 additional business days over the retail before the end of the calendar year.
When's Thanksgiving?
That's the day before Thanksgiving, that's right. Thanksgiving's on
So
the
you gotta
20th.
move that, you should move that up a week, right?
Well, that would be, what do you mean?
I mean, we don't usually
I didn't.
have a meeting that,
Business day.
no.
Okay.
Are we usually here the day before Thanksgiving?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm cooking the day before Thanksgiving, okay. All right, so November 27th, so what do commissioners? That's when we have to pass it by. So, so, do we want to? All right, so so do we want to just drop the motion then and we'll put it on a later agenda when it's been revamped?
Well, the date needed to send to the department heads at the end of this month. How about if we just do it the next meeting? Well, this week, that's fine, I just, okay, you mean this week? Yeah, we'll just throw it on Wednesdays, one of Wednesdays.
Okay, that's fine with me.
Point of information to consider, though.
Okay.
If there's 10 business days, but if there's 10 business days and then he vetoes it, we have to get back, and if we make a change, then there's 10 more business days from that, if we resubmit it another way. So I'm concerned about, at the end of the year, if having enough time, if it was veto, and then if we approved it, let's say the next day, is it another 10 days?
Wouldn't we,
Okay, I don't know, that's why I'm asking.
I don't think that continues.
Okay.
Point of information, I don't believe that continues into perpetuity, because then, I mean, we would never know when that could end, right? Because it could go 10 business day veto, 10 business day override, 10 business day veto the override. I mean, I think there's veto and override, I think, are the two that we worry about as far as dates go.
I think he's thinking veto and override doesn't occur. That's what he's thinking, not override occurs. If override doesn't occur, then it doesn't get settled. Okay, and I just want to clarify something else with respect to the email. These dates were they in the original calendar that we, and we did that in January or February?
In January, you had all these dates, you only adopted them through May until last month, and then you adopted the rest of them. The dates have.
But did anybody else have the
They've
dates?
been on mine since January when they were first meeting for the court.
Okay, because that was the other confusion that I had. I had different people telling me different things with their.
The confusion for us was, we did see the whole budget calendar some weeks ago, but then we also recognized that the board only adopted like a first quarter calendar. We didn't know that all the other dates were whether they were going to move or not. Typically, I could be wrong, but typically I recall the board always adopting a calendar for the entire year, not just a quarter at a time.
That's correct.
So that's where,
That's correct, but if, in all fairness, so if we've erred on our part, also on your part, when you saw that calendar, you could have immediately seen that there was a problem. The communication of letting us know, guys, if that's what you're planning, or letting our office know, we're gonna have a problem, might have, all of it, all around, our way and your way, we might have been able to not have this kind of confusion. So I'm just gonna point that out. So we're just gonna, who made the motion? I did. Okay, so you're dropping the motion and it's just gonna come, you're not dropping? Okay. You're withdrawing the motion and you'll put it on somebody else's agenda. Okay, very good.
Can I go back to that state, put it on somebody else's agenda?
Wednesday.
A Wednesday, oh,
I'm not, yeah.
okay, that's fine.
I'm giving it to, that's right, I'm giving it to somebody else.
That's what I thought I heard.
Okay, supplemental information sheet. That's I think it's kind of what's being requested. Again, it's a motion to recommend to the full board. Let me seek a motion. Moved by Kraft and support by Gillette. And again, on this, I don't know if there's going to be any. Vote is already up. Okay, please vote. Motion passes 10-0. Okay, so the next item we have is attorney-client privilege memorandum. And I'll seek a motion, moved by Leonetti and support by Gillette. And I just wanted to say to commissioners, I don't remember if I said it at the beginning of the agenda. We had these requests from the prosecutor, and now they've been broken down into a series of requests. We don't have that yet, but I think we don't have meetings for a couple of weeks, and I didn't know if it was going to be on Wednesday's agenda. I know that's a consideration. So I was asked, would I put this on the agenda? I didn't want to deny commissioners the opportunity to talk to the attorney, even though we don't have those in front of us. That's why I put it on the agenda. I don't know if commissioners are going to have questions, but I didn't want to deny you that opportunity. And then so there could be questions, and it's expediting it to put it on Wednesday, but we also have a couple of weeks before the next agenda item. Okay, so please vote. And it was a bill that's around 4,000, a little bit above 4,000. And I think what's happening is they're going to hold the retainer to the end in case we don't pay all our bills, and they can take it out of that. So I'm checking into this, but I don't believe that they've spent the retainer of 30,000, and now I think that that's being held in abeyance. And so we've really gotten our first bill if that's the case. So I just wanted to let you guys know that. We're processing that bill, but in the meantime, we're going to find out if it's separate from the retainer. So anything else? Okay, public participation. Seeing no members of the public, we'll move on. Motion to adjourn by Gillette, supported by Kraft. See you later. How many of us were there? How many are there? Motion passes 10-0. We're adjourned.